ASEAN Breakfast Call. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Yes, first and foremost news from Southeast Asia. This is Arlene.
This is Gowri.
And we will be starting our day with more information and news for you from Southeast Asia, international news, and of course, our very own Malaysia. So, Gowri, we always start our conversation with how are you? But today, I want to start my conversation with you not with a question mark, but with a statement.
Which is?
Sorry, I have to laugh on this.
I thought you were going to ask me how's the coffee, because the coffee today is terrible.
Actually, I was about to talk about coffee. I miss our own, I'm not promoting the brand, but I miss our very own personal favorite 3-in-1 coffee that is so popular that it wakes me up every time.
And of course, we are talking about Nescafe.
Are they paying us for this?
They're not
promoting
us,
this brand.
Unfortunately, we need our Nescafe for this breakfast show.
Yeah, we just accidentally bought an anonymous brand. So to start off our news today, perhaps on a sadder note is the ATM machine along the areas in Klang Valleys. 14 ATMs have been hacked in just 3 days. Can you imagine that?
This is a terrible syndicate. At first, it was just one, it was just two, it was three, it was being reported, and the police were rushing to the incidents to carry out the investigations. And all of a sudden, it happened in so many different places, and they couldn't do anything about it. So the total number now is 14, and they seized about 800,000 ringgit. That's just 200,000 short of $1 million.
That is genius, whoever that hacked this. And guess who were the culprit that they suspected hacking this? Latin American hackers. When I read the headline saying that Latin American hackers targeted all these different banks, including Raji banks, Bank Islam, branches in Petaling Jaya, Klang, Kajang, Shah Alam, and Puchong, instantly. The first thing that came, and also Affin Bank, of course, instantly the first thing that came to my mind was, is this some sort of Hollywood prank or Hollywood movie in the making?
It's like that movie, Ocean's 12.
That's the thing. Someone is Latin American. You would imagine Quentin Tarantino, at the back
or
of
Antonio
the scene.
Banderas.
Oh, yeah.
But, well, it is a very serious issue that the police need to definitely solve immediately, because it started last Friday, and by now they have seized a huge amount of money, and it's not a small matter because we all have our cash in the bank and it's our money being robbed, and it's very scary. People should be careful when they go to the ATM the next few days.
So far, they have been robbing banks that they are banks that are not that popular. I think it is
and in
popular.
the outskirts of the cities.
Yeah. But when it comes to Maybanks, MB, these are definitely bank of choice by majority of Malaysians. So if they manage to rob these two banks, it is definitely more serious than we
Are we getting
assume.
paid to say this too, that CIMB and Maybank are really safe?
Could be. We never know yet. But 14 ATMs within 3 days, that is one marathon. And talking about one marathon is, of course, I'm talking about the marathon towards independence. And this is about Catalonia. Have you heard that, not country, but that area before?
I have,
region?
unfortunately, because I do watch Spanish football and I'm kind of obsessed with everything that is Spanish, even the language, the culture, the food. So yes, I have heard of Catalonia, and it's very interesting how Catalonia is joining on the bandwagon to it. Pretty much like Scotland.
Everyone is gaining independence.
Exactly.
When is Southeast Asia doing the exact same thing? As we all know, in Southeast Asia, countries have problem with some region of theirs because probably they don't share the same language, they don't share the same culture. With Philippines, there's of course Mindanao. Indonesia, there's Aceh and Papua. With Malaysia, somehow sort of with Sabah and Sarawak, but the relationship is still maintained at a very good
Probably Penang will do that soon enough.
If soon enough the opposition manage to garner the trust to rule their own state, they will become their own nation state, which which we see it with Singapore.
And Catalonia, which accounts for a fifth of Spain's economy, it goes back to the economic benefit. It also has its own language and distinct culture and has long fought for greater autonomy. However, the Spanish Prime Minister is not as nice as Gordon Brown, who went to Scotland and begged them not to leave. He insisted that no group of Spaniards could take decisions on sovereignty that affected the whole country. So it goes down to him and his decision.
The difference between Spain and the UK is the UK is a coalition of different countries. They band together under the Jack of Union. While Spain, all these different region within Spain, the area in Spain are considered as part of the nation state. So that's definitely different. And secondly, each of these different coalition within United Kingdom have their own way of life, way of governing, but their identity is still somehow half of it is part of their nation, another half is part of United Kingdom.
And Artur Mas, who is the leader of Catalonia, has signed a decree, though, to call a vote on the 9th of November for the separation of Spain, from Spain.
So, watching a lot of football, do you think footballers will be cheering for this? Since that, can you imagine if Catalonia is not part of Spain? That means one team less. Is their team exactly the way they play exactly like the UK, which means or England, which means that different team represent different area within
yeah, exactly.
England?
That's how it works with Spain as well.
So there's a team within called Catalonia, something like that.
Not Catalonia though, or maybe they're not in the first team, the first league, so that's why.
Yeah, so one team less. Wouldn't it be not nice to play?
Yeah, they'll be their own country, but they can compete in Euro 2016 in that case if they cannot be a part of Spain.
This is what majority or some of Catalonian people said. They say that we want to be free. We want a new country that is part of the slogan in red and yellow and in two colors of the Catalan flag. And the documents that contains 18 chapters addressing issues such as defense, social security, trade relations, and financial viability of an independent Catalan state and integration within the European Union and the international community. So they definitely have already paved the way towards forming an independent state compared to, of course, Scotland. So they knew they want this. Perhaps that's a major difference. While the Scottish, they are 50-50. That's why when you look at the pool, it's 49-51 or 50-50. So in a sense, we definitely look forward to a new country if that's what the people of Catalonia wants it.
Yes, and we wish them all the best in their quest to become independent from Spain, if that's what they really want.
All the best also when it comes to the Thailand's ready for global affairs. This is the headline of Bangkok Post. So Thailand, just like Malaysia's Prime Minister went to United Nations a couple of days ago, United Nations New York, to address some of the key challenges that are faced by countries within Southeast Asia. And one of the areas that he highlighted, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Thanasak Patimaprogon, I hope I mentioned that rightly, he's willing to take part in international forums on human rights issue and peace. So it seems like Thai government, even though it's a military government, they are willing to participate within the international community on issues related to peace and human rights.
And he also, General Thanasak, said that he's currently attending the 69th United Nations General Assembly. And yesterday he joined an informal meeting of ASEAN foreign ministers to discuss all these regional affairs and focus on preparations for the ASEAN Economic Community, which is happening next year.
before we mention about ASEAN
Economic.
economic community is Thailand is also putting their wishes and also pledging their support to bid to join UN Human Rights Council 2015 and 17 and secure a seat as a non-permanent member on the United Nations Security Council in 2017 and 2018. That's very ambitious of Thailand, especially to be part of UN Human Rights Council, which highly unlikely because they already have a reputation that's a bit tainted when it comes to democracy.
Another thing that we will find hard to believe is General Thanasak's comment saying that we should rest assured that Thailand is moving towards democracy, and said that the government has implemented a stimulus plan to build a good investment environment under its economic roadmap.
At the end of the day, it's all about economy. You want to have good economic and trade relations with all these countries, especially countries that uphold these values. You need to have democracy. And for any businesses, having a country that is peace, stable, and people are able to move freely without the fear of inevitable civil wars or whatsoever violence is really important.
And not just within the country, because earlier we were discussing about Catalonia, and then there's Scotland, and even if you look at Southeast Asia, we have all these territorial disputes. It always goes back to the economic benefits that can come from the control of a certain region or a certain state within the country.
So at the end of the day, it's money that rule the world.
It's money that is ruling the world, because
just like that music, money, money, money. It's a rich man's world. I hope so. It's not. But when it comes to trade relation, usually the most secure ones are bilateral trades. And this is what we see. It's not really exactly bilateral, but if you see ASEAN as a country, a region that has its own rule of law and country, or in terms of goals in economy, you can say that ASEAN and Australia is working on strengthening comprehensive partnership.
And this is important to discuss because we discuss about ASEAN a lot. We discuss about China and US interfering in our affairs here. But we hardly ever bring up Australia when we talk about ASEAN.
Australia is the closest country within Asia Pacific that could have major trade benefits to ASEAN. And one of the information that I want to highlight in this is the discussion for the ASEAN-Australian Commemorative Summit that will be on November 12th in Naypyidaw, Myanmar, to mark the 40th anniversary of the ASEAN-Australia dialogue. Relations as an opportunity to elevate the matured ties to a higher level. And it is short for AAJCC, the ASEAN-Australia Commemorative Summit. And this summit will be chaired by U Thein Sein, President of Myanmar and Chair of ASEAN, and will be, as usual, attended by all ASEAN leaders and Prime Minister of Australia.
And this plan of action covers, of course, a range of ASEAN-Australia cooperative endeavors, be it in political, security, economic, trade and investment, also covering social, cultural, and people-to-people exchanges, tourism, and important education issues while they're at it.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like it is covering an umbrella area of topics, almost everything perhaps. And this is to, they are having a plan of action and also to implement the joint declaration on ASEAN-Australia Comprehensive Partnership 2015 and 2019. If you look at the bigger picture, it seems like ASEAN is really involved in a lot of mega trade blocks or bilateral trade blocks. If you look at all the different trades that are involved, either individual countries or ASEAN as a whole, of course there's ASEAN-Australia, ASEAN++, and ASEAN Economic Community, and not to forget the two biggest mega trade block that will be mega trade pact that will be happening very, very soon, which is the RCEP and also TPPA.
And Australia is actually ASEAN's oldest dialogue partner, which a lot of people may not know. And they established their formal ties with ASEAN in 1974. That goes back quite a long time ago, and we're reviving our partnership or our relationship with Australia. And Australia they said that they will continue to support us in community building efforts and in terms of other development as well. So I look forward to that one.
And also, around Southeast Asia, of course, we want to talk about economy, trade relation, but we cannot avoid discussing about security and threats. And some of the threats can be from ISIS, which are international, loosely networked organization. But some of the threats can be within our shore or between neighbors. And what I'm trying to mention here is the South China Sea. It has been ongoing since forever, if we want to talk about how big the scale of this dispute.
And we are referring to the U.S. launched joint exercises near China claimed waters. Although the Philippine Marine spokesman, Lieutenant Gerber Anthony Bologno, stressed that the location of the opening ceremonies doesn't actually have anything to do with the territorial dispute, but of course that is a little hard to believe. And they had a 12-day amphibious landing exercises involving about 3,500 U.S. Marines, sailors, and also 1,200 Filipino counterparts. And it was all officially launched from the western island of Palawan, directly facing the South China Sea.
This reminded us on the how terrible the relation could lead to, especially if you look at Taiwan and China. Taiwan also have a U.S. military base, and China would be usually having some sort of military action exercises around its shores facing Taiwan. And with what we see in the Philippines, it seems like what they are doing is a show of might, but in a very discreet way, in a way that they want to give a message to China, hey, don't mess with us. We have the US, and the US are preparing themselves in case you're messing with us anytime soon.
But the US also did mention that they are actually taking no sides in this territorial dispute. But then again, they did sign the pact with Philippines that requires them to come in should anything happen in the case of Philippines being threatened by China or any other country for that matter.
With US, from what they have been expressing, of course they don't want to be involved explicitly within this territory, especially on the South China Sea. But at the same time, U.S. position in this is any of its partner country, especially countries that have U.S. military base, is being hit or is being attacked, they have no hesitation to defend themselves. And this would involve U.S. Army in it and Navy personnels.
So China should better watch out. And,
is that a warning? China should better watch out.
It's an advice.
It reminds me of Uncle Sam putting his finger pointing to the
right.
audience. You better watch out. I'm watching you. I'm on the other side of the shore in the Philippines. I'm watching you.
Yes, and I'm Auntie Sam giving advice to China.
And just to show what happened at that time. So every year, the U.S. Army or Army base will be forming some sort of training or exercises in the Philippines. And this year's exercises include small arms of artillery, live firing training, machine assault, and paratroop operations. The USS Peleliu, a U.S. amphibious assault ship, along with 2 support ships, arrived at the former U.S. Subic Naval Base on the weekend to take part in these exercises. So when we think of exercises, we would think of army marching, maybe just a bit here and there of gunshot and all that, and maybe some acrobatic plane flying, but that's it. But if you are talking about how U.S. Army do its exercise, does its exercise. The same with China as well. It's not as innocent as we would assume. So it involves ships, assault ships, not just ship, but assault ship. It can blow the whole of its enemy ship just like that. And also it has all these different weaponaries that it was showing, and of course the army itself. So, Gowri, if you look at this is definitely a sign, isn't it?
It is a sign, and it is a scary sign, especially that it's happening in Philippines, and we know that should anything happen, U.S. can always step in, and it's not just about Philippines now. When we talk about the territorial waters, of course we cannot avoid bringing Vietnam in, because they also had their fair share of dispute with China, because China placed some oil rigs which was in the waters that's also claimed by Vietnam, and that is also for going back to economic reasons, and that the whole thing could get really messy if it gets out of hand.
This is what the U.S. A lot of analysts said why U.S. presence is kind of prominent in Philippines, at least for now, is because they are doing this check and balance thing. They call it rebalancing of military power towards rising Asia, and in Asia that means it's referring to China in particular. So in a way, they are doing this stabilizing action against China on the South China Sea.
They're just carrying China. There's no need for an euphemism for this to tone it down.
Well, one area that we definitely need to sign the deal and tone it down is the issues of refugee. So activists, human rights activists, are outraged over Cambodia-Australia refugee deal. And of course, early on, last year or a couple of years ago, Malaysians were outraged of the Malaysia-Australia refugee deal as well. It was never material, so it was somehow stuck in the middle, because no one wants to have a refugee deal that violates human rights itself.
And Cambodia is going to try and resettle potentially hundreds of refugees intercepted while they were on their way to Australia in exchange for $35 million in aid, forging ahead on Friday with the deal, widely condemned as a threat to the asylum seekers' safety.
So few details of the plan have been released, but it would initially apply to asylum seekers being processed on Australia's offshore detention centre on the tiny Pacific island of Nauru. This is similar to the facility in Papua New Guinea under a policy criticized by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. These are refugees. Refugees meaning, there's the very narrow definition of refugees, meaning that they are not running away because they are poor or they have other economic limitation. They are running away because they are being threatened politically in their own country.
It's usually due to political reasons.
And for them to be detained in an island that has no rule of law, that is totally under the care of Australian government and also probably some other private contractor, it is not safe, especially it might risk having some violation of human rights. A lot of the refugees who forced to stay at one of the islands in Papua New Guinea actually face a lot of psychological problems. Some of them even commit suicide. That's how serious it is.
And even in Cambodia itself, it has been criticized by international rights group, saying that Cambodia is no better. It is both unsafe and it's ill-equipped to handle a large number of refugees. Although they try to get these people back to their country, they still need a huge amount of money to actually cater to these people and give them what they need, and provide them with their basic rights.
It's ironic because you would assume Australia having the most livable city in the world, and I'm referring to Melbourne, and it is such a beautiful country with beautiful, friendly people, but at the same time, its government is committing the biggest atrocity in Australian society, and this is what is being mentioned by Amnesty International. The agreement is a new low in Australia's deplorable and inhuman treatment of asylum seekers. These are asylum seekers. They are not some people who just want to come here and gain take advantage of the economy of Australia. These are people who are running away because their life are being threatened.
And also, but if we were to look at it from their point of view, they have been receiving a lot of these asylum seekers over the years, and they have people from Cambodia, from Indonesia mostly, and probably from other countries as well. And
Myanmar.
they probably have a huge influx of these asylum seekers over there.
In fact, not just Southeast Asia, but also the Middle East. And these people are being treated in the most deplorable human rights violation ever. And you're right, there are many people that are coming to Australia's shore, and is threatening Australia's stability in a way that a lot of Australians, they are voting and or are favoring anti-immigration policies in order for Australians to feel that they can maintain the status quo in their country. Would that be good enough?
That is a little too extreme, but I wouldn't be the one to tell them what's right for their country. So, because we kind of have that same problem in Malaysia as well, and it's tricky enough to have all these refugees, and we have to cater to them. Of course, maybe don't shut them out altogether, but there should be a law to control the number of refugees that they get. And
this is the number, I'm just telling you. 16,000 asylum seekers came to Australia on 220 boats within the first 7 months of 2013. That's how huge the number is.
Hey, Australia is pretty huge too. There's plenty of room for everybody.
Perhaps. Let's just see.
I was just being sarcastic.
Perhaps,
I do not support that.
Perhaps Australian might open up their eyes and see that. But whatever it is, asylum seekers are definitely different from those who wants to take advantage economically of other countries. So perhaps Australians should open up their mind about this. That's all from us today. And thanks for listening to our news commentaries.
And of course, don't forget to like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. We also have a YouTube channel. And download the TuneIn app. If you're on the move, just look for Durian ASEAN, and you can listen to us anywhere, anytime.
With that, we will continue with our Blast from the Grassroots and, of course, ABC Dialogue. Stay tuned.